Hey yo, and welcome to the AWO Journeyman podcast, where sickness seems to be the trend of the week, where 2 out of 3 of us have succumbed to something. I am John, the blue supporter, or JD, the blue supporter, that was weird, who is just happy that Harry Mackay has played a good game this week. Joining me as usual is Nate, who will be at the airport on Thursday, not heading to Perth, but wishing Jordan De Goey a speedy trip, as he's going to be on holiday for a solid month. How you doing, Nate?
I'm crook as a dog, clearly. The camera quality is picking up on it, but I do have an announcement to make. I'm not going to do a Damien Hardwick, but I am going to retire from footy tipping at the end of this season. I've had enough. I've had a gutful. And I've also come up with a list. Teams least likely to most likely to fuck up my footy tips.
Are you going to do it now, or are you going to do it at the end of or are you going to include these 4 teams that are on the bye list?
Well, I'll start off with the 4 bye teams, controversially, and then I'll get into each team as we cover each game. So we'll start off controversially with Brisbane. 17th, in a good 17th. So least likely to fuck up my footy tips. If I know they're going to lose, they lose. If I know they're going to win, they win. Freo 5th, I think they've gone backwards this round, and you'll know why. Sydney 11th, bit of a nothing side to really tip. You know if they're going to fall off, they'll fall off. But St Kilda, 2nd. So many times last season they fucked up my footy tips.
I'm sorry that you just can't tip like I can.
Oh.
It's just something else. I mean, you had one good year too. You had a really good year last year.
You know, the worst thing is I don't bet. Imagine if I was betting. I would have lost my shit by now.
Imagine if you were betting. You'd be you would imagine a multi or two that you would have dropped by getting every other leg except for the winner.
Yeah. It's always a close one. It's always you can tell already, I've had enough. I've had enough of tipping.
You've had a gutful. I get it. But especially when I'm tipping the most random victories this year and pulling ahead by, I don't even know, what am I ahead by at the moment?
Oh, with me, I think it's about 6. So the worst part is, for me at least, 2 years ago, I had a shit year, but I was actually winning some comps. This year, I'm just shit everywhere.
Yet you're still beating Maso.
By 1, but I'm still doing shit by Nate standards.
But it still makes me laugh.
Standards.
It's true. I mean, now I feel like I'm gonna have to buy my own championship by the end of the year.
No. I will get you something. I don't know what's going to be, but you will get something.
But I also think that you can't retire from footy tipping as long as you're doing this podcast, which is a shame for you. So what an absolute shame. You can try to retire all you want. You're going to get dragged right back in the second we start the season.
So this is a Tony Lockett thing. Like, he was coming out of retirement.
It's like an abusive relationship. It's like me with Carlton. But I was going to say, speaking of Carlton, but I quickly wanted to say shout out to Maso. He's out this week with sickness.
No, it's legitimate. Something's going around.
Yeah, something's going around. Good that you boys are getting it out before we go to Perth. I'm sure by the time we get there, you both will be cherry ripe. Little quick update. You'll see the I Love WA on the screen down there. This time next week we'll be there. This time next week I'll be recording a special WA episode. But we will be heading to Perth as of Thursday morning, and we'll be there till Monday evening.
Yeah, so we will be able to watch King's birthday, and then on the plane back home.
And then we'll be on the plane back home to somehow get back here at midnight. Typical Perth to Melbourne. God, it's gonna be fun. I mean, I want you to report on the Instagram page, because we'll be using the Instagram page for probably some vlogging here and there, some good old pictures sharing. But if you get that thing that Mason Cox got, that text message, that's the first thing that you're posting when we land in Perth.
All right, so Mason Cox got a Telstra message, something to do with international data roaming. That's what I'm looking out for with Telstra.
We'll be keeping a close eye out. But shout out to Maso. He's out this week with a sickness. He will be back next week in the Perth episode, and it'll be good to see him finally. But let's get into the footy. So, boys, let's talk some footy. Or boy.
Well, it's the first of 4 bye rounds. So we start off Friday night with Melbourne taking on the bye.
Yeah, at the moment.
8-13-61 plays Carlton, 6 goals, 8-44. Just when you thought Carlton's attacking or scoring couldn't get worse or lower, it does.
Oh yeah.
Don't ask the rhetorical question. How can it get worse from here? Because it's just going to get worse from here, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. No. Wait. Before you do say it's going to get worse from here, I have an Essendon fan mate, of course, old mate Jabs, who he is animate that they're going to play us back into form. Which
at the moment, it's a truth game, yeah.
Of course, Essendon fans think they're going to play us back into form. I think every person I've spoken to when we've come up against them is like, "No, we're going to be the team that plays you back into form." I'm like, can you guys not see how shit we're playing? It is awful football to watch at the moment. We dragged Melbourne down to a level I didn't think. I mean, actually, no. This is the level of football they've been playing recently. So they need to really find their shit before King's birthday, because if they want to really take it up to Collingwood, this is not the game they can produce. They cannot produce 8 goals, 13 against Collingwood. It was a very, very boring game on Friday night. I think every quarter and every change was just as boring as the next. It was just a very constant game. Like, basically, Melbourne got out front, and then it just pretty much felt like it stayed that way the entire game. It did not. Once they got in front in the second quarter, they didn't look back. It was basically we chip away at it. It just felt like typical Carlton game at the moment. About 24-point losses has been I think I've tipped them because they've been playing on Friday nights. It's actually been really good for my tipping, because tipping against them and tipping round 24 points is the key to getting a really good start to the week of tipping. I should have given you that advice, but now the Friday night games are over.
I tipped Melbourne by 24. I'm not kidding. I actually did that on ESPN tipping.
There you go, mate. That's it. That's exactly it. You got to tip Carlton to lose by 24, and it's usually the best way to start it. I think I started it the second week, and it's pretty much been a trend since we around that mark, at least 24 points. But this is just another. This was a 17-point loss. We could not chip away at anything. Positives: Harry Mackay had a good game. Like we said, Brody Kemp had a good game. It's a lot more of the players who you don't think of that are having better games at the moment. Sin Connor was still relatively impressive to me. I still don't know why he's been getting dropped. I was just going to quickly say this is all about Melbourne, but it's more so for me. This is more leading into King's birthday for Melbourne. Which I'm sure you probably want to get into a little bit as well. So, King's birthday, heading into next week. Looks like Clayton Oliver will be coming back. You guys had a bit of a rough day at the office on Saturday, but it does look like you've also got some crucial players coming out back in McStay and Lipinski. I believe that was confirmed post game. So. King's birthday is shaping up to be a good game, but again, as we sort of said at the start, Melbourne cannot be bringing this sort of effort to a game against Collingwood. They will eat you alive.
I was going to say, Melbourne, in regards to footy tipping, I've got them 14th, most likely to fuck up my footy tips. Carlton, I think it's just more for me in recent weeks, 6th. I did say to JD during the week, had they beaten Melbourne, they probably would have gone up to probably 2nd or 3rd.
Fucking the lose-lose. The lose-lose. It was a lose-lose for you.
For me. And I had to specify, for me. Just an off-field question for Carlton. I have to bring up the board talk for Carlton with what's going on there. Is the Carlton board spelt B-O-R-E-D?
I think so. That's what I keep seeing.
I just have to throw that in there.
I think so. I keep seeing that because they're an absolute crock of shit, that board.
But boring into powerhouse.
powerhouse. Actually, if they had scored kept going and scored kept basically almost scored 200, I would have called it and said this is the Papa powerhouse side to take it to the flag. But I'm gonna pump the brakes a little bit because I do think some respect needs to be said to Hawthorn. They had a very good final term, pulled back a little bit of junk time respect.
Junk time respect.
Junk time respect. That's what I think. Let's dub it that. Junk time respect. Earning. You got to be a lower team for it to be junk time respect. But it's when a team completely gives up, and then you're that shit that you then have like a 7 to 10 goal haul, and you're like, you know what? That's junk time respect. Because it's impressive to do it to anybody. So if you can, muster that up, we'll call it respect. Respect where respect is due. But yeah, it was a bit of a dog day at the Adelaide Oval for the Hawthorn Football Club. I said it perfectly. I think I've dubbed them the Hawthorn headache, but let's be honest, the Power had taken some extra strength Panadol because at the start of that game, there was no headache to be seen. They were just a bunch of witches' hats getting absolutely dominated. Had to sub Meek off quite early as well, just so they had any form of competitiveness. Actually, it was any form of speed on the ball because he was getting absolutely towed up. He was getting destroyed all over the ground. But this is just Port Adelaide now rolling in and doing what they need to do. This is their 9th win in a row, I believe it is, and it is the most in a row in their club's history. So
it's weird how no one's really talking about that, unless people want to mention their SANFL history, which we can if we want. But in terms of the AFL, they've been in the AFL for nearly 30 years. It's their biggest win streak. It's something to hold their hat on, and it looks like it will continue on as well.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, there's almost like a train that's unstoppable at the moment. There's a few teams that will probably get in their way and will beat them at some point, but they're on track at the moment for a very, very fine season. But as we'll pump the brakes again. This isn't finals yet, and especially peaking right now is not what Port needs to do. To be fair, I don't think this was peaking. I think this was just absolutely decimating a lesser Hawthorn team. And I think especially after the week Hawthorn had, potentially that played into it a little bit. I mean, I don't think it would have, because sometimes it's a bit of an interesting one, that one where you're not sure if, players always say that they don't look into those things, but also it's such a significant thing that's happening to the club at the moment that you just sort of have to wonder that maybe potentially it's playing into some on-field stuff, especially to get pumped by 55 points where realistically, like we said, if they didn't get that junk time respect, they probably wouldn't have even come close. It probably would have been an absolute blowout to the point of 100-point victory.
I was heading towards the 186 from Geelong v Melbourne in 2011. They got to 100, I think, halfway through the second quarter, and we were calling at the time. They were on track for it. Obviously, they did pump their own brakes on that. Only kicked, I think, 7 goals. After that.
First team in a while, I believe they said, to reach 100 points by halftime.
Yeah, 2012, I think it was. I'm not sure who it was in 2012 who got it,
but either way, yeah. I mean, the fact that they've also, that's an impressive record to break already. I mean, that's a 10, 11 year. I shouldn't say a record, but just 11 year dry spell. There's not too much to harp on in this game. Hawthorn really did do their best in the end. They just didn't show up for that first half, and it just that was all she wrote. It really destroyed them. And it didn't help that every now and again Port would just pile on another 1 or 2 goals while Hawthorn were, coming through with because realistically they scored most of their 14 in that second half. I believe they only scored 2 goals in the first half. So realistically, to get themselves to 96 points, I mean, shit, that beats Carlton most weeks. So, Good on him.
It nearly beat the combined score of Carlton v Melbourne.
Yeah, pretty much.
Positive for Hawthorn, though, is Luke Bruce kicked his 500th career goal and kicked 5 goals.
Brucey.
Junk time respect? Nah. That's Luke Bruce for you. Club champion at Hawthorn. And Finlayson and Marshall also kicking 5 goals. We can praise Port. Last week, they won by 10 points with 10 individual goal scorers. So basically, no one kicked multiple goals for Port. But here we go with Finlayson and Marshall kicking 5 goals each. And you got Dixon to come in soon.
Actually wanted to speak about this just quickly because we spoke about Quinton Narkle in our preseason game, and we said, how the hell is Quinton Narkle not on the list? Now, he wasn't the premier person of the mid-season draft, but did get picked up. Was meant to go to the Tigers from what I had read, but got overlooked and ended up going to Port Adelaide, but didn't matter because his 2 best mates in the competition, Shai Bolton, Sam Powell-Pepper.
Yeah. So,
either club he was going to go to, he was happy. So good to see Narkle back on a list. I do think he's a bit of an X factor that's going to could play a bit of a role later this season, especially considering that he has played in a few finals, I believe, at Geelong. So we'd have to look into that. But I believe either way would have played in some big games for Geelong. So always good to bring in a player like that, especially an X factor. So nothing wrong with that. So, but do you want to? Where do these 2 clubs rank with your tipping nightmare?
If Port were Port of recent week or start of the year, probably would have been higher. I've gone down at 8th. We're starting to realise they're winning games, so they're pretty reliable to tip. Hawthorn, they're a bit of a headache from time to time, but nothing too drastic for me. I've got them 13th. Harsh one. It's kind of like the AFL ladder right now. There's like a big cluster from 5 to 13. So you don't know where I'm going to put them. So I've got Hawthorn 13th. I think they're often reliable in the last few years.
They are. They're Mr. Reliable for how shit they've been. So speaking of teams that are reliable for how shit they've been, West Coast the last couple of years would surely be down the bottom. I'm sure you'll get into that. But West Coast gave up, had a little bit of a fight back in the 3rd quarter, but ultimately went down to the Pies by 63 points on Saturday. This game was just a clinic from the Pies. There was really not much to go into, other than your injuries. I mean, we go into injuries on the other side, which there were a few injuries again. There was a few injuries for the West Coast as well. Elijah Hewitt out, of course, with that with head from that massive hit from Jordan De Goey. Jordan, like we sort of said in the start of the podcast, Jordan De Goey likely to miss. How many do you think? I'm going to say around about 4 weeks.
Can I just say, I wasn't surprised by this. Perth has the same time zone as Bali. Coincidence? I think not. So I'm going at least 3. The media, I think, wants it to be 5 or 6. I heard some people say they want it to be a couple of months.
I believe you're going to love this one, but I believe Dom Sheed came out and said that he said it'd be good to see him rubbed out for 1 or 2 months.
Oh, of course he said that. He's got half a lemon in his head.
Half a lemon in his head. I mean, to be fair, it was a pretty dumb comment, but yeah, I reckon based on media scrutiny, then the pullback of where it truly should land, it'll land somewhere further up a little bit. So we're probably looking down the scale of 4 to 5.
I'm still going 3 to 4. He's going to miss all of June. Let's be honest. Yes, he's not come back until July. There's a bye round as well. That's not going to count.
He's not.
I'm comparing this to Pickett, McAdam. There was another bump as well this year, and they were all 2 or 3 weeks. That's where I'm putting it on. Hopefully, there's no fractured cheekbone or anything major with Hewitt. I just hope it's concussion. That's it.
Yeah, let's not downplay the hit. It was a nasty hit, to be fair.
I think as well with the media, given how desensitized we are, how we're often protecting the head now, and rightly so. When you see a bump like this, we're just like, oh. And I think that's why everyone's a bit shocked and what the fuck about it.
I think that's even why I've sort of gone, oh, this is going to get a few more weeks. But also based on the fact that they've got that concussion lawsuit going on this year. Okay, you and I are fans of wrestling. So we can sort of go, we have this weird perspective on concussion stuff to begin with, because we literally watched the business of that be affected by concussions for such a long time. So seeing some of these things happen with the AFL, where they're suspending people for longer to realistically look like they're doing something, because we all know, let's be honest, I reckon this will happen as well. The second all the concussion lawsuits are settled, all of this will settle down. It just will. It may not go back, but it will settle down a lot more. We won't see players getting rubbed out for as minute stuff. Now, I'm someone that agrees with protecting the head, but some of these suspensions we've had this year have been a little bit ridiculous. I think we can all agree with that.
Oh, this one won't be ridiculous, though. Yeah, it's definitely going to be at least
not at all.
3 weeks. But De Goey's got a bit of history with this. 2021, he got suspended for a bump on Oliver, and last year he got suspended for a sling tackle on Dangerfield. So he's got to fix that issue.
He's just not reliable, like, in season at times. Like, he doesn't do this shit post-season, but he's very unreliable in season to do this sort of stuff. And realistically, like, they were saying he was a bit of a Brownlow fancy. I don't know where he'll end up in the Brownlow. I personally didn't think he was that high, but going to end up that high. But, realistically also blew his chances at anything like that. But that's not only injury that occurred in that game to Elijah Hewitt. There's also Shannon Hearn that will be out for the realistically the mid to long term. Your favorite term. That was used so much yesterday because, I mean, realistically, it's become the new trend. That's the new trend, mate. Short to long term, mid term, short term.
For Hearn, I'm gonna go mid term because he'll want to send off. So they'll rest him up as much as they can, get him right for the last few weeks, and then send him off into the sunset. But
also not the only injuries that came out of this game. Big Bad Bo went down with an injury as well. Looks like it was on the minor side, probably only out for a few weeks, but will probably likely miss King's birthday. Will Hoskin-Elliott likely to also miss King's birthday. Potential to get up, though. They also had Ash Johnson cop a mighty fine corky deep in the fourth, but I reckon that was gonna easily get over that. A 9-day break should, unless something drastic happens, should easily overcome something like that. You've also got Pat Lipinski coming back, as we mentioned before, and Dan McStay likely to be available. Whether you bring them both straight back in, I reckon Lipinski will miss another week and probably go through the VFL if they're, I shouldn't say if they're smart. It's just probably what is likely to happen. But McStay likely to come probably straight into the side. You would assume for a King's birthday clash, especially when Melbourne are also likely to have a few come back as well.
Positives for the Eagles, at least. They did win the disposals and they won the clearances as well. So I do get the sense the Eagles will win a game this year. Who it's against, we don't know. But I'm going to say this right now, considering that Collingwood actually did win against West Coast. You are going to be filthy if you lose to West Coast this season.
Yeah, I'm so glad we pumped them. I'm so glad.
But you do play them again.
Yeah, but I reckon we're in a really shit period now. By the time we get to them, we should have hopefully at least had some form of a turnaround, or at least have something going for us. I have a feeling, and I have a feeling by then they'll have that win as well. But yeah, not wrong. They will get a win this year. It's just who's going to be the unlucky fucker that it happens against.
I think the most likely candidate would be North Melbourne, considering that game's going to be in Perth. But after that, I can't think of anything else. It would be a genuine upset. But the Eagles are going to win a game. They are going to win another game this season.
If you're North or Hawthorn, do you really feel that slighted if you lose to West Coast?
Depending on where they're at in regards to the ladder, given the number 1 draft pick.
Yes, that's also very true.
Hopefully, it's
Very,
not a case of
very
dead rubber.
true.
Not a case of dead rubber, and also not a case of a team that's actually trying to push for top 8. So if a team like Essendon lose to West Coast or Adelaide when they're pushing for top 8, they're going to be filthy.
Filthy like that little burp you just did there. I love it.
Oh, fuck. But the Eagles, 18th.
Yes.
Least likely to fuck up your footy tips. I haven't tipped West Coast since 2021.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I tipped West Coast.
And Collingwood, maybe last year would have been different, but this year they've been very reliable. 15th.
Very reliable. Did you say 15th?
15th.
Yeah, very, very reliable, that club at the moment. Moving on to Saturday night with a game that was actually quite fun to watch. It was back and forth for, I think, for nearly probably 3/4 of this game. Then Geelong really just took a hold near the end and just absolutely strangled the Dogs. I'm talking about Dogs versus Geelong on Saturday night at Marvel Stadium. Geelong getting themselves over the line of the Dogs by 22 points in the end. This game was fun. This game was back and forth. A lot of, it's funny, we had Sean Darcy closing down on Tim English as the premier ruckman in the competition. Tim English is just, I think no matter what, just keeps pushing him away, even if he was in, because the performance he had last night was phenomenal. A lot of Dogs highlights from last night, which was, quite interesting. It was that sort of game where the Dogs, they kicked 10 goals, 15, 75. So had plenty of the ball, plenty of the possession, and, really did feel like for a lot of the game they were dominating Geelong. But, Geelong just that little bit more, I should say a little bit more accurate, a lot more accurate, 15-17 for 97. That's, we say it every week. I'm sure it's a cliche in football. Bad kicking is bad footy. And, of course, that means that the Dogs are I reckon it's almost like the bad kicking is bad footy week, team of the week. And I'm almost willing to give it to something now, like a team of the week that kicks the shittest. Because we're at that point where every week we're getting teams kicking absolutely awful. My team's been kicking, the past fortnight would have been, top of the ladder when it came to that. But the Dogs on Saturday night had an awful night out. And yeah, this was one of those games where they just let it get away from them in the end, and Geelong stole a win. Well, it felt like a bit of a steal of a win.
For 2.5 quarters, yeah. But they didn't kick a goal until, their last goal was not even halfway through the third quarter. Like, they kicked 2 quick goals. It was O'Donnell, and then I think it was Arthur Jones. Well, someone got a mark in the goal square, kicked the goal. Dogs went up by 7 points. Good first half as well, looking back on it. But Geelong, very impressed by them. We criticised them for being a bit, not too old, too slow, but sometimes you can beat them on the counter-attack, and sometimes the Cats don't attack quick enough. They were attacking quick enough in this game where first 10 minutes I thought, this is going to be a bit of a blinder. I don't see the Cats dropping off. And I did feel as the game went on that the Cats were going to overrun the Dogs, and that's exactly what they did. They kept Liam Jones to just 3 disposals, just 3 marks, no intercept possessions for Liam Jones. And I think that's a good way to stop the Dogs. If you can stop Liam Jones, you can stop the Dogs' defense and you can overrun them in that aspect.
Yeah, well, he's become their big general, of course, as the marking defender down there. So as you said, you stop him taking those marks. It really does take, not only does it take him out of the game, but it takes their team firmly out of it. But there was some other one big thing to come out of this game was Ed Richards doing his hamstring, because he's been having an absolute blinder of a season.
Red Richards.
Sorry, Red Richards. But yes, he's been having an absolute blinder of a season. So terrible to see him go down.
Fucking snipers, man.
Snipers in the at Marvel Stadium. Although I don't know where the roof was closed, so I don't know where they're hiding.
Medallion Club.
Up in the rafters or in the Medallion Club.
It's Sting in the rafters.
He's in the rafters. But yeah, so there not too much to go on. go on and on about this game. Again, as I sort of mentioned, it was a game where it felt like the Dogs dominated for a good chunk of it, just to sort of let it slip midway through the third, and just let Geelong run all over the top of them in the last quarter. Geelong with a much needed win had a few losses, especially last week's big loss to the Giants. So to bounce back here, and Dogs just allergic to the top four.
I was going to say, have the Dogs blown a top four spot, or
they're just allergic to it? Every time they get near it, they seem to do this. They've done this in years past as well. Every time they get near it, they get allergic.
Yeah, this was the game that made me go, fuck tipping. Because the Dogs, I've got them third, most likely to fuck up my footy tips. I can't get a gauge on them. They're starting to really annoy me with my tipping. And Geelong, this is going to be harsh on them. I've got them fourth. Maybe it's just for this year. Last year they were fine. This year, not so much. I'm still trying to get a proper read on Geelong. But fuck these teams. I can't trust anything anymore.
Yeah, these teams are starting to exist to ruin footy tips. They're that 7 to 10 range, which has actually become, to me, fifth to 12.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a vortex. You just don't know what's going to happen in that vortex.
It's a vortex of teams that beat each other week in, week out, and you don't know who's going to end up on top. Again, and it's funny because we're literally about to enter the vortex with the next game we're about to talk about. With the Suns versus Adelaide, where the Suns mounting, like you said, you started it off saying the Suns are mounting a bit of a comeback. Then it became just a demolition because, and then it became a bit of an Adelaide comeback, and then it just became another demolition because I tell you what, fuck with the Suns in Darwin. They got you'll love this. Kelly Underwood dubbed it the Darwin double.
Whatever.
Not too bad that one, but yeah, it was a game that was absolutely won by the Suns stars in the middle. If it wasn't Rao getting them, it was Anderson. Those two with Witts as a combination, arguably the three deadliest midfielders in the competition. I don't think they are week in, week out, but they're arguably, when they're on, some of the hardest, three of the hardest people to play on. You could just tell that Took's loving. He's out at the moment, but he's absolutely loving watching these boys at the moment because after the game he was all smiles. I think he's loving watching his midfield brigade that he's realistically, and he's helping coach at the moment, so he's having a firm hand in what these boys are doing. So you can just see the pride that he has as a captain as well. I mean, not a captain, sorry, but as a leader of the football club. So yeah, good to see the Suns get a back-to-back wins that really. These are the wins that we've been talking about elevating their season and taking themselves to the next level. I still have faith that this is the Suns team that can push themselves to a final. I hope for their sake they do. They hope they're the fairy tale of this season that get themselves there, but long way to go as of yet, especially for a team like Gold Coast. But I guess where does this leave a team like Adelaide is probably the best question to lead off with, because losing to teams like the Suns is not what you need when you're trying to claim a final spot. So where do you think this leaves Adelaide?
Well, you've dubbed Hawthorn the Hawthorn headache. I'm dubbing Adelaide the agoraphobia crows. They just can't win away from home. They can't be trusted away from home.
It has become an issue.
So they're becoming flat track bullies, and it was mentioned, and I've been given wise advice, don't tip Adelaide away from home. Now, I did tip them to beat Hawthorn in Tasmania, but that was off Darcy Fogarty kicking a clutch set shot plus Hawthorn milking the clock when they shouldn't have milked the clock. So they could very well have won every game at home and lost every game away from home. So they're, I guess, not too unreliable, but in the aspect of trying to push for finals, you're going to look back on the Giants' loss in round one and this loss here to the Suns as those games that you just go, what the fuck? Well, these are the games that cost them finals. Yep. So the Crows, and they're not they're kind of like the Suns as well post-bye. They do run out of legs. They've got a worse record post-bye. So it's going to be interesting to see how Adelaide respond to this one. I thought Adelaide could have gone up. I thought the conditions weren't too dissimilar to Adelaide. I thought it would have been enough to, I guess, acclimatise to, and they've got the power, well, not the power, but the big forwards and the midfield and a solid defence to get over the line against the Suns. It was on track early on, then just it became a roller coaster of a game. It was fun to watch back. And the Suns as well, there's 6 wins, 6 losses, and a perfect 100%. 991 points for and 991 points against. And I know why they won. It's because of us. We held them accountable.
We did hold them accountable, and we do. And like I said, I think we've been willing the Suns on as well, willing them to victory, because I think I just want to see, of all teams this year, it's funny, other than my own, of course, outside of the 8 at the moment, they're the other team I just want to see somehow get themselves there. And they always feel like, you put it, even after that win yesterday, they're still unable to get themselves in the 8. They finally got the points that they need to get to be in the 8, but still they're 11th sitting outside at the moment. So, and they've got the bye next week with Geelong as well. So only 2 teams with the bye next week.
Yeah.
Bit of a weird one, that one. Makes sense, I think, for King's birthday weekend. You want to showcase that weekend a bit more. You'd be a little bit filthy being left off King's birthday weekend. So a crucial win for both those clubs on Saturday night. Both of them roll into the bye with wins, and both teams notorious. Now, the Geelong, of course, turned it around last year, but both teams notorious for dropping off post-bye. But I don't know how many teams we can have drop off post-bye, because if that's the case, then Carlton's making finals, mate.
But if teams drop off post-bye, then it's, as Collingwood, I'm sitting at the top just looking down going, sort yourselves out.
Yeah, pretty much. You just have to work out who you're playing. Realistically, you're almost at the point where you're just going to be working out who you're playing week 1 of finals.
Yeah. So the Suns, I've got 10th, most likely to mess up my footy tips, I guess in a good way. I didn't tip Suns this one. I did have a hunch. Same as last week, I had a hunch. Didn't tip them. But the Suns, they're a good headache, in my opinion. And the Crows, I guess 12th.
We'll move on to Sunday's game, which has only just finished just before. We're actually recording the podcast a little bit early due to all these illnesses that are going around the AWO family at the moment. So
due to unforeseen circumstances.
We've gone a little bit early today. So but the game that just finished before, Giants versus Tigers, in an actual quite a fun game where the Tigers got themselves to over the line by 6 points. 104 played 110. Not a lot to say about the game itself, because these are 2 teams that just do not look threatening at all this year. I think that had to be said by how easily they scored on each other all day. And a lot of it was based on going up the guts a lot. So I think they opened each other up quite a bit, which says a lot when 2 bottom sides open each other up quite a lot. But in saying that, 104, 110, 2 high scores, and a game that just was fun. It had everything we love. We had a bit of a draw watch going for the end of that game, to only get themselves over the line by 6. We just needed the Giants to do it. But Dusty turned back the clock. A few changes have been made by McWalter that have been a little bit obvious. Pickett was the big one, and I think that's something that we need to discuss, considering realistically that's how they won the game in the end, was off Pickett's boot. A few big changes that he's made. He's only really made probably around about 3 to 4 that have been noticeable. But, starting to have his little bit of a mark on the team, and, gets his first win as a coach.
Have the Giants found their main ruckman in Kieran Briggs? Because it's starting to look like it.
Yeah, the big man played really well. I think he kicked a couple goals as well. One really impressive one from outside 50. I believe it was in the 3rd quarter. I'd say they've probably found their number 1 ruck. So poor Matty Flynn, he probably ends up off a list, but do think he's also at value at some club somewhere. So not and especially being a ruckman, not all is lost in that sense. But yeah, I'd say you've nailed that call with Kieran Briggs. He's definitely looking the spoils. There was a few young kids that really stood up today. It was really a battle of some of the younger talent that these clubs had on display. 1 second, I'm just going to get up who.
Well, Josh Fahey kicked his first goal. It was from outside 50. It was a big one as well.
That was it. It was Josh Fahey and Judson Clark as well with a big goal late in the game. So
my boy.
And it was good to see Judson Clark as well, not starting as the sub. He was starting on the field this week. So, like we said, a few changes that have been made where he's getting a bit more of a chance. But yeah, it was good to see some of the kids for both teams on display. But as I said, it was just the Tigers' day from pretty much the start. They started off the game red hot. I believe they kicked the first 6. If it wasn't 6 goals of the game, I believe they kicked the first 4. Then Giants responded with 1, then kicked another 2 goals after that. So either way, realistically, got themselves off to an absolute flyer. So credit to the Giants to get themselves back into it, but just wasn't enough to get themselves over the line.
Yeah, so Giants, I've got 7th, most likely to mess up my footy tips. They're annoying. I know Maso doesn't like them. I don't like the Orange team. And Richmond, they'll love this. I've got them 9th. I haven't done that as a joke. It's that 5 to 12 Vortex, and Richmond from time to time will mess up my footy tips.
But who did you tip in this game?
Now, I tipped Essendon, but if they lose this game, I'll just say it right now. Essendon, most likely to mess up my footy tips and mess up everyone's footy tips. Bit of a story time. I never got 9 out of 9 last season. I did win a few tipping comps last year. Had a good year last year. But the 3 or 4 times I got 8 out of 9, it was always because of fucking Essendon. They lose the West Coast in West Coast or in Perth, but they can beat Brisbane in Brisbane. How do you explain that?
They, as you said, they exist to fuck up your footy tips. Well, they kicked another goal, but where have you got North Melbourne rated as well?
I've got them 16th. I think it's because of their round 2 win over Freo that bumps them up from 17th or even 18th to 16th. But the Dons, I have a message for the Dons. Now, I had a few Dons friends last year message me saying I'm so glad Collingwood knocked Carlton out of finals. I don't want to heap shit on JD on this. It's just more Essendon fans praising Collingwood. I don't know where this has come from. But I had a look at Essendon's fixture. Their last round, or their match, final game of the year against Collingwood. So Essendon, you want to confirm finals before you play Collingwood. Because I reckon the pre-finals will be just Essendon and Carlton fans just coming together and going, those motherfuckers.
Oh my God. I mean, it's going to be amazing if it happens again.
I'm just saying, Essendon, be careful with who you're celebrating teams, just falling off a cliff and praising Collingwood, because Collingwood doesn't give a fuck. And Collingwood will knock Essendon out of finals the same way that we did to Carlton.
And as we've said before, watching Collingwood are elite. So you don't want to fuck with Collingwood. So yeah, that's an interesting one, mate. Can I task you with something? I know I love you don't have to do it for the Perth episode, but can you do it for the episode after Perth? Can you please do a ladder predictor and see what it would take for you to knock them out in the last round? And if it's genuinely possible.
So I did this. We did this last year, or I did this on my own last year. I know JD was happy with Carlton. He was confident Carlton would make finals, and I did my own ladder predictor. I'm like, hang on a minute. There's an off chance here that Carlton could miss finals, and you got Collingwood in the final round, and yeah. So I'm saying it now with Essendon. Heed my warning. Confirm finals before you play Collingwood.
You really do. You don't want to do what we did and then have a month of absolute pain where you're just like, if we win this week, we're in. If we win, what's funny? I still don't blame Collingwood for knocking us out of finals. I still retain the week before against Melbourne is more of a heartbreaking loss if you go back and watch it. So, of course, playing Melbourne this week, the clip was going around of how close we got against Melbourne. That is in the last 30 seconds. At least
15.
Jamie Elliott. Yeah, Jamie Elliott's at least in the last 2 minutes. So I don't know. It's. I mean, to be fair, 2 heartbreaking losses to end the season last year. God damn, how have I put that shit to the back of my mind so quickly. But I'm so defeated now as well. Now that we're getting to the end of the podcast, we can sort of go into some of these things. I genuinely was so not even flat on Friday night. I was just sitting there trying to be content with little things. And I'm like, God, I'm back to 2018, for fuck's sake. This is what I used to do in 2018. I used to sit there and be like, now let's look for the positives. Fuck's sake.
During the week, I was looking at some old North Melbourne games. And one thing that piqued my interest was after the game, I don't know much about North Melbourne. Their main song starts off with joining the chorus, but they've got their own build-up prior to that.
Hearts to hearts and hands to hands.
Let's do it. I actually wrote this down word for word. I want to sing.
Oh my God. You'll test my knowledge if I know the full thing.
You don't need to sing. You can lip sing it if you want, but I'm going to go word by word. Hearts to hearts and hands to hands. Beneath the blue and white, we stand, we shout, God bless our native land. North Melbourne, North Melbourne. Out we come to play. Just for recreation's sake to pass the time away. Lots of fun, heaps of fun. Enjoy yourselves today. Your Melbourne boys are hard to beat when they come out to play. So let's get into the fucking segments.
It's a pretty. I'm pretty tired as well this week. I feel like I'm like the rest of you boys. So the Arrow's a bit subdued this week, but sort of referenced it a little bit earlier, and I'm going to go into it a little bit more. But it's the Dogs being allergic to a top 4 spot. I know. It's just I just think that this Dogs side, after the wins they had in a row, were starting to prove themselves as a side that was becoming a side to beat. And then they come out and produce what they have in the past fortnight, and you just question everything about them again. So Dogs sort of come out. Shannon, my good friend, will absolutely lose his mind to this shit because he's the same type. Every time they get close to this shit, they find a way to fuck it up. They love trying to do it from 7th or 7th, 6th, 5th, rather than trying to do it from the actual top 4. I think they made top 4 in 2021. Nope, didn't even make it then. Finished 5th?
Yep, they fell out.
That's what I mean. So they just love finishing outside the top 4. They're allergic to a top 4 spot. So it's time for the Dogs to take a good hard look at themselves when it comes to getting themselves into that top 4 spot and actually get themselves there. Dogs, you've been arrowed.
Let's go break some hearts.
It's time. It's fucking time. Paddy Dow, welcome to the boys club. Paddy Dow, now game-wise, subbed on, 9 disposals, 2 inside 50 entries. Less bet the game, the better. So Paddy Dow, born in Swan Hill, he attended Geelong Grammar College on a sports scholarship, I think year 9 or year 10. I'm just blanking on his Wikipedia page. Played under 18s for the Bendigo Pioneers, where he was picked or taken at pick 3 by Carlton in the 2017 AFL draft. 64 games played, only 16 wins. A cheeky Brownlow vote in 2021 over Freo. According to his Wikipedia page, he's studying a Bachelor of Business at Deakin University. My bold call, 2024 round 1, Paddy Dow will be in a starting 22. Whether it's against Carlton, we don't know, but he'll be in a starting lineup somewhere. Midfield as well.
I think we said it best this week. We thought he wasn't going to get the game after all the injuries that Carlton sustained to their midfield. So thank God he got a game this week. But also, can we just acknowledge the fact that we're not the only ones that feel this way about Paddy Dow. The cheers that boy got every time he went near the ball on Friday night was absolutely beautiful. So the Carlton faithful, every time he touched it, gave him a big roar, a big cheer, and a bit of love. And it's something that we've needed to see. And so hopefully that encourages Vossi to keep him in the side, even just for a bit of a petty reason. But I do think he needs a full game. Like, I don't understand how somebody like a Lockie O'Brien was getting a full game ahead of him. So hopefully that switches and one of them becomes the sub. Like we said, a few more injuries came out of that game. So, gonna be interesting. Interesting for Dowie.
We've all got our boys in now. Maso's got Bailey Banfield in. JD's got Bo McCreary in. And I finally got Paddy Dow in.
Isn't it funny that both of us, our boys, are at each other's club? Like, I adore Bo and you adore Paddy. And they both play for you. One plays for Carlton, one plays for Collingwood. You would not think that at the end of the day.
There's always that one player for an opposing club or just any other club. We just love them for some reason. That's why we induct them. That's why we nominate them. That's why we highlight them. I'm glad that not just us, but other fans, not even Carlton fans, other fans are wondering, where's Paddy Dow? We've been onto this since last year.
You said it best, I think, and this is going back to something you and I spoke about probably 2 years ago when Vossi was put in as coach, or not 2 years ago, but a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's basically that you said he gets his favourites, and that's it. And I honestly do think that's what it is with Dow. He's not in the favourite list. He's not a Lockie O'Brien who somehow finds himself in the side every time. Clearly, Voss likes Lockie O'Brien for some reason over Paddy Dow, but also, someone who could potentially become a boy and hopefully does. I reckon for Carlton, it might be time to take the Bins out because Jackson Binns is knocking down a selection call, and he is just like for like of Paddy Dow with probably that little bit more skill. So watch this space. But Paddy Dow, do you want to say? Actually, I'm going to let you say it. You say it. He's your boy. You say it.
Paddy Dow, welcome to the boys' club.
You remember this, pal? You're a boy in a man's world.
Right, so Maso's away, but he's left us a name. Cam McCarthy.
Sweet Jesus.
All right, off on the fly here. Cam McCarthy, born April 1st, 1995. April Fools, they're up there. Oh, wow. 70 games. Oh, could have been 69, but he's got career goals, 99.
Wow.
This guy is a joke.
Well, he could have been anything, let's be honest.
What a weird one as well. So 2015, he played a full season for GWS, played one game prior in 2014 for GWS, but then took a year off because he couldn't get a trade to Freo. Comes over to Freo, 2017, and that's where shit hits the fan. Shit hits the fan 2016 Freo-wise. 2017, shit hits the fan at Freo. Cam McCarthy couldn't get many games. Oh, he played not three full seasons, but 49 games for Freo. He's kicked 63 goals. And he had 2 cheeky Brownlow votes at GWS and Freo. He also kicked the match winner against Melbourne a few years back at the MCG. For some reason, Freo loves playing Melbourne at the MCG.
That they do. But we gotta reference his nickname when he came over to Freo. Of course, the Doka dubbed him Darty McCrafty.
Darty McCrafty, that's right. There was an earlier nickname for him, Sunshine McCarthy. I don't know where that came from. That was for GWS. Never took it over the Freo. What else can we talk about? Never won a game. Never won a game against Collingwood. Never won a game against Geelong. 4-1 over Carlton, and he never beat West Coast either.
Of course, he's 4-1 against Carlton. God damn.
Loved playing Gold Coast. Averaged 3 goals against them.
Well, that's the we should be proud of this one. I'm glad that he's brought in Darty. We've got a few. These are a few controversial picks. I've seen a lot of WA boys that are getting in. Me bringing in Harley Bennell last week. Got Darty this week. A few of the controversial boys as well.
My special wing, Mitch Morton, played at West Coast.
We're just loving WA, so maybe we'll have to bring it back to the East Coast at some point.
Heads up, my next nomination's heading out east, so it's all good for me at least.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to have to start doing some more research of some of my boys out east. Even though I've got a fair idea of who I'm going to bring in next. But Darty McCrafty, aka Cam McCarthy, welcome to the Hall of Fame, bud.
Takeshita!
Ouch!
I forgot about Takeshita Watch. I forgot about Takeshita Watch, and I just got really excited. It's so exciting.
What a segment. I went back and watched that. My God.
Takeshita getting booed for his entire promo was amazing.
Oh.
Well, we better get into it. I mean, I'm going to take pride in this one. Our boy is back. Takeshita returns at Double or Nothing. He is back. He returned in Anarchy in the Arena, as we had predicted, doing exactly as we had thought, attacking Kenny Omega and kicking off a feud where he is not a part of the BCC, but appears to be in a separate group that will be led by Don Callis. So it appears, though, he will be in Blood and Guts. And it appears that he's in a one-way collision with Kota Ibushi.
Yeah. Love
Oh, boy.
But what
Oh,
a segment.
boy.
What a segment on Dynamite. Don Callis, take a bow.
It's funny because people were making fun of it where they're like, oh, Dominic Mysterio is laughing at this segment. And I'm like, no, this is what you call genuine heat, my friends.
This is a get out of the fucking ring heat.
Oh, it was beautiful. And Takeshita being a part of it for us. And like I said, it's from here on out, it's Takeshita being featured all the time. It's 3 shows every week. We are going to get a healthy dose of Takeshita on our televisions, hopefully weekly.
Hook it up to the lanes.
That's what I reckon. So twice in 1 week, he appears on AEW television. The push has begun. The cat's out of the bag, and the boy is ready to ascend up the ladder. So
Now, we did wish Takeshita a happy birthday. He didn't respond to it. Classic heel stuff.
I mean, you know what? Even better that he didn't respond based on the last week. No, he was just, let's be honest, he was just kayfabing us because his birthday was before Double or Nothing. So he had gone dark at that point, you know. It's just a shame. But Takeshita, he's back.
In a big way, too.
Especially heading to Perth, where we're going to be watching Dynamite together next week. God, I can't wait when all 3 of us sit down and see what Takeshita gets up to. So, yeah, that is Takeshita Watch. That's probably the most excited
I'm clapping this one.
Probably the most excited I've been about Takeshita Watch in a while.
I was as well. That segment, just classic 5 minutes.
It was just, it's funny. So I was reading a thing where they said that basically anyone in the arena could not hear a fucking word. They did not know what the fuck Don Callis said. And I was like, that is amazing.
And they probably wouldn't have heard anything Takeshita said as well. It was pretty difficult to pick up.
I was going to say, some would say it was in Japanese. I guess we'll leave it there for this week. There's not too much. I'm going to say that it's going to be a big week, so we'll just leave it there. Especially because you guys have also been sick for the past week. So get well soon, boys. Hope you guys get better. But we are the AWO Journeyman. I am JD. This is Nate. And we also got Maso, who's not able to be here right now. Follow us on our socials. I love saying socials, even though we have social. Instagram, at AWO Journeyman. Also follow us on Spotify and YouTube, where you can get the podcast each week. It always drops on a Monday. That's also at AWO Journeyman. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. And please, drink more water. Especially you, Nate.
I'm trying, mate.
Please, mate. I just don't want you to pass out.